Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Grown Folks Business on a was rainy, but I think it's cleared up Thursday evening. Glad that so many of you could join us this evening, including a couple of new faces. Well, one new face, two guys that show up pretty religiously. Jay Dwayne and Bob. Appreciate you guys for being here. Jay Donaker is gracing us with his presence this evening. Glad he could make it. I know we had talked about you coming on for quite a while. If you want, and it's purely up to you, I can give you a couple minutes if you want to make this some minuscule amount political so you can talk about what you're running for and what you're doing. It's not a must, but it is an offer. So I'll give you the opportunity in just a second to do so. Mary Carmen, good to hear from you. Glad you're well. Glad to see that message and glad I pronounced your name correctly. I'm getting better at it. Every time I see it, I'm on guard. So glad to see that you're watching tonight. Welcome. So tonight's topic, if you want to call it that, is more of a discussion piece that I encourage Jay and Bob to kind of be thinking over throughout the week. I called it 3 to 5. Tell us some of your daily contributions to the bettering of us. So I know some people probably know based on my participation in this space, I do like to adhere to certain philosophical ideals and the way that I approach life, and I don't mind sharing those. But this is less about the philosophical aspect and just more about your intentionality when you wake up and when you leave out the door in the morning or in the afternoon or evening, whenever it is that you encounter your neighbors or community members. What is your contribution? Are you knowledgeable of what you're trying to impart into your surroundings and into the world? So this is going to be a conversation that may steer towards the energies realm. I'm not a astrophysicist and somebody that's beholden to some zodiac notions or anything of that nature, but I have to recognize that there are, positive and negative, good and bad energies that exist, and I think our moods can dictate the energies that we exude as we interact with others. So that's definitely going to play a part in this conversation, I'm sure. So Bob and Jay, again, I had given you guys the content for tonight a little sooner so you could be thinking it over. And I want to make this, just like I said, more of an exchange of ideas and conversations and how you approach being someone who contributes to the betterment of the sum of us. But before we get to that, so you guys have a little bit more to think about, and Jay Donaker, you can actually have more to think about since you're just being introduced to tonight's topic. But I'll give you the floor for a couple minutes if you want to talk about who you are and what you're doing in Rockingham County.
You bet, and thanks, Felton. This will be very brief. Basically, I've been involved with being an activist in my community for over 25, 30 years, starting with building the community pool for one of the few Ys in the state that did not have a pool because at the time they were building it, I'll be perfectly honest, there was a racial element that just didn't want to have a pool there. Well, we overcame that. We raised $1 million. That propelled me to want to do other things within the social fabric of Reidsville. So I ran for mayor. I've been mayor 16 of the last 25 years. 2 terms at a time, because I do believe in term limits, and you need a refreshment of the leadership locally by having people step away and having other people step up. So I did that twice. I finished being mayor in November, decided I wanted to continue in politics. I knew I was going to retire at the end of June. So am running for NC House District 65 and got through the primary successfully, and hopefully in the general election, I will win. We're on the pathway to do that, but to be perfectly honest, I am in a county which is primarily red, but it's also a county that likes to say they vote for the person and not the party. And it's also a county that's known me for over 15 years, running around the roads, working on farms, and seeing the change that's happened to Rockingham County. So I'm very optimistic.
I appreciate you sharing that, Jay. Rockingham County is sneakily progressive at some points and at some times. So I was actually up there yesterday doing some RELC work at the health care department or the health department, and had wonderful interaction talking about racial equity, hour-long discussion with some people that worked in that building. So yeah, the fact that I'm so well received in Rockingham County gives me the right amount of hope that people like you can be elevated and allowed to move us further on a state level. So good luck to you, and glad you could join us this evening. So without further ado, because I just got a good feeling that Bob and Jay have some wonderful things to say about this topic. I have the strongest feeling that Jay really is chomping at the bit. I think he's got something he wants to say about these ideas around what your daily contribution is. I know what you do in the DEI space, and I know what you do in with Love is a Parable in terms of actually trying to make us better. So I would think that you have probably more than 3 to 5 things that you bring to the table once you leave your home in the morning. So have at it, Jay, and incorporate the ideas around good and bad vibes, positive, negative energy, or take it wherever you like. And we're just going to have a good discussion tonight. So go ahead, Jay Dwayne, have at it.
Thank you. To be honest, Felton, like out of all the lessons, this was probably the easiest one. I was like, okay, we got this one. Normally I have to really think, and to your point, Love is a Parable is the only thing that I've ever done in this world that's 100% me. And it's the only thing that I invest 100% of myself in. So when you gave that one, every day I live my life being 100% authentic. I believe in offering love. I believe in offering value-based education, which was something I didn't know that I was doing for so long, but helping people to kind of not change the way people see things, but showing people how their values shape the way that they see themselves, others, and the decisions that they make. Um, and no longer being ashamed. So and it's a level of intentionality that I bring with that authenticity. And that's my daily contribution. But also, I give people an invitation to be themselves. And we talk about energy, right? But usually we look at energy as something that is opposition to be something that is negative. But I do welcome opposition, and it doesn't have to be negative. Yes, it can be uncomfortable, but we learn so much through conflict and opposition that we're robbing ourselves of some of the most beautiful opportunities by seeing that. And I believe in being that safe space for individuals to be their authentic selves. And then we determine those next steps. Now, whenever I encounter something that I don't like, I don't have a problem with voicing my concerns. And I don't have a problem with someone also correcting me. Um, and that's one of the things that I want to offer every single day is just a space for people to be them, be human. And I am fortunate to do that through Love is a Parable because it's literally everything that I couldn't do in the world. I now said that I will do.
Awesome. So I know there's a whole lot more to be unpacked in this conversation. I'm definitely looking forward to some follow up with what you just shared. But being authentic and having that understanding of one's values is it's very important to exude that and to take that, and that should, if your values are in the right place. And I don't think you call them values if they're some things that are dubious. So value conversation is something I did a lot when I worked at the Y with teams, and that's gives you some structure and balance. And if you walk out your door with a value system, then yeah, there's a multitude of things that, like I said, go well outside that 3 to 5 range that you're imparting into the world around you, that you're contributing. Um, Much like yourself, I think something that you alluded to that you didn't necessarily say specifically, but if I'm in a space and there's something I can offer to someone in that space who is visibly not all the way either, I don't want to say in a good space because that's an observation in that type of setting, but you can, when you can tell something's off with someone, if there's a different type of vibe that's going on, and if there's a simple hello or how you doing, man, you could literally, I mean, I've used this analogy before, but you go through the drive-through and you run into that worker who is maybe curt or just having a terrible day, and you can sense it by the way you're having, an exchange or ordering your food. I have gotten to those places and those points with certain people in that type of setting, and literally you can reel someone back in just by saying, how you doing? Are you okay? You having a good day? And they may say no, but you could see the ice thaw just from asking. Or you can get that, like, I appreciate you, even if they don't say it, I appreciate somebody actually asking how I'm doing. So yeah, that type of thing, man. I think the energy that I carry, the contribution that I try to make in one of them, and like I said, it's an ongoing conversation. We'll keep going, but it's to just be a decent human being and to be considerate, and to know that the world is not revolving around me. I think that's important. Bob, you had the homework assignment. So what are your thoughts on the matter?
So I'll take the complete opposite stance that Jay Dwayne took. This is exactly the kind of task that I don't like. This is you slip these things in here periodically, and it's like, damn it, why did you do that? Because it makes me have to think and then talk about myself instead of talking about an object or a concept or an idea or something or another. And I completely get why Jay Dwayne found this to be an easy topic because of what he does, because of his day, because of Love is a Parable. And I completely get that. But I don't have such a thing as Love is a Parable. I don't have an envelope that I live in every day that creates a space from which I operate in a particular kind of way or particular. So I have to think a bit harder. I do have to say that Jay Dwayne's comments about authenticity, I so appreciate that, because one of the things I will say, and this is not something that I do for anybody else, I do this for me, but I do find myself very intentionally gravitating and investing time and interest with people that I identify as being authentic. And so that is such a powerful and such a wonderful way to be. And it's elusive in our culture. It's just elusive. We so many things, including lack of confidence, including social structure, including systemic things, cause us so often, or cause many people so often, to feel like they've got to operate a particular kind of way. And that's a shame. That's such a shame, when people ought to be able to feel that they can live their genuine selves, and that their genuine selves can be valued and recognized and respected and appreciated. So I just make that comment. I don't know if I can go. I don't know if I've got 3 to 5 things, but I did come up with a few things, and somewhere along the lines, along the way, years ago, I decided that I would very intentionally let people into the street in front of me. Like if I'm driving down the road, somebody's trying to get out of a parking lot, I let them in. or if they need to merge or whatnot, I'll always let them in. There's something about rather than getting in front of them, letting them in, that I decided a long time ago was something that I was going to do intentionally when I'm out and about during the day. And it might be getting in the left lane on a highway so people can get in safely and seamlessly, or it might be literally letting somebody in. I have to confess that if I see a Trump sticker on the car that I just let in and the person doesn't acknowledge that I let them in, that pisses me off. So again, I have to acknowledge that, but I do acknowledge that. I also find myself, and again, this was a decision, very intentionally. I like with the car, I'll hold the door open for people too, because of the same kind of thing. It's like, I don't have to be first. You can be first, and I can hold the door, and you can go in. But also things like you were saying, Felton, if I'm going through a drive-through, say hello, ask how your day is. I know that the people that are doing that work are less privileged than I am. And the least I can do is be polite and appreciative for the work that they're doing, and smile and ask about them and say, something. I'm a good tipper. And that's something else. It's like I'm eating, somebody's serving me, somebody's cooking for me. I'm paying for the food. The least I can do is pay I'm going to say generous additional amount for the person that's doing that work for me. And that's my server, because they're not my server. They weren't born to be my server. They were born as my equal, and now they are serving me. So I want to show appreciation and gratitude for that. And if I can afford the meal, I can afford the tip. It's foolish to think I can't afford the tip if I can afford the meal. And so I do that, and I treat the server, staff, whatever, with intentional respect for all of the same reasons. So I guess to sum up all of that and to a wrapper, I think that kind of carrying oneself with an intentionality or an intentional spirit of gratitude, appreciation, and respect, those are just some examples of how I do that I think about. But I think that that's a way that we all can add value to the world, and unfortunately, I think it does require a decision to do that, because otherwise we just wander around clueless and unaware that there are other people around us. And
yeah, so to sum up, I think consideration is a big one to take with you out the door and show it to your fellow human being. For we know not what somebody else is dealing with, and you don't have to. Being considerate is something that I think we all desire to receive some levels of consideration. So why not give them, no matter what someone's status or station is, or what their position is in your observation. And Bobby, go ahead.
And that's right. And we don't know what their situation is, but we know that it may very well and possibly more likely is worse than our own.
Possibly. That's where I was getting ready to go, because you'd be surprised that some people actually are okay with wherever they're at. I'm not a person that necessarily believes, and this goes to the philosophical things. I think I was talking about this recently. I think it was one of our Thursday morning conversations. Um, Socrates was, homeless and chose that life, but we still know him to this day for a reason. So who are we to, you know, it can be a level of offense to project upon somebody uh, that they're dealing with something that's more averse than you are in life. And the whole rich people kill themselves too notion comes to mind. So that part aside, just recognizing one's humanity, no matter what status or station, uh, affords everyone, if we think about it, some level of consideration that is deserved, no matter what. So that part, I have some questions, but I got to hear from Jay Doniger now. So I got two J's. I'm gonna try to make sure I don't get you guys confused. But Jay Doniger, I'm interested if you're able to catch up and grasp what we're doing here. Do you have any things that you leave the house with? I was really interested in how you mentioned what your public service was like, and one of the goals that was accomplished was getting a swimming pool despite the historical racialized baggage that existed. That was a hurdle before you could accomplish that. But that took you having some ideas about what you wanted your community to look like when you left the house in the morning. So what are your contributions?
Well, number one, underlying everything is always to be as inclusive as possible, always to be willing to engage everybody at whatever level they're comfortable with. Internally, the book of Matthew is what kind of drives my engine for my values and always has. Can't always live up to it, but certainly try. Lastly, we have a disconnect in government and in civics in general. And that disconnect is spawned by politicians who say, oh, you just don't understand it. It's a complex issue. And it's also driven by people who don't want to be transparent and don't want to engage to where people actually do understand. And they find out it isn't rocket science, and it really isn't as complex as it's made to be. I guess there's a fourth point. I said last, there's actually one more. I recognized when I moved here that the city employees of Reidsville did not reflect our community. And it's been a lifelong struggle on my part with other members on council to work to allow the advantage that many white people have had for numbers of generations to also become part of and parcel of our city administration. And we're not there yet, but we've been working hard at it. And it's just a matter of literally just keep chipping away, making sure that there's no pre work interview, and that it's truly a interview that's up front right out of the gate, and you make everybody's sure that everybody's treated as fairly as possible. Inequities continue to occur, but you have to shine a bright light on it when it does.
So I'm hearing one thing that I like to be also is available, accessible. So when you leave your home, you shouldn't still be in the home of your mind and not be prepared to interact with other people who may just want to actually say hello to you or some things of that nature. So be accessible. I think that's a critical element. And also be intentional about knowing that your surroundings should not look and remain one way. They need to be diversified. And if you can contribute to that, then why not do it? So if that's the nuts and bolts of it, if I understood that correctly, I think those are wonderful things to contribute to any community and of course to the world. How can we not be better from that? How can we not be more closer to the ideas around what it is to be a member of the human race, like the betterment of us all. So yeah, great observations there, Jay Doniger. I appreciate that. So a couple of questions. I still follow where your heart leads you in terms of responding to this generally, the topic as it is generally. So if another contribution comes to mind or you want to rephrase something, let it be known. But I wanted to touch on this thing about energies really quickly. So we're aware of this, I'm sure. But if you have an example, if you have an observation concerning this, please share. And I'll start with you, Jay Dwayne. But tonal energies are so important to whatever we desire to contribute or whatever we're desiring to communicate. How you sound. And we all know what it's like to raise our voice or to sound snide or to be short. So are you aware and have you observed or do you pay attention to your tonal energies when you are out in the community and interacting? That is one of my uh, thoughtful contributions, I think, to your point, Bob, because I love that you were very practical with yours. But one of my practical contributions is to, when I interact with anyone, to try to make sure, and it's not even an effort anymore because I think I've conditioned myself that way, that my tone is truly indicative of what energies I want to exude at that moment, how I want to be received. So if you are aware or conscious of that, let's speak on that for a moment. Jay Dwayne, have at it.
I honestly think as a black man, you don't have an option. Um, you have to be mindful of your presence in every room that you enter. I can give a prime example. People always think that I'm 6 feet whenever they encounter me. And I promise you I'm 5'11" and 1/4. I want to be 6 feet too. But every time, like the one I get all the time, like, you're 6'3", ain't it? I'm like, no. But also when I say things, it comes with a certain message for whatever reason. And that's good and bad. For instance, I'm that random person that people come up to and just tell their whole life to. Like, I have a flag on my face that says, "Tell me all of your business. I'm really interested." Right? Equally, when I stand in a room and I say something, for some strange reason, people look at me as if, quote unquote, I'm important. Those are things you have to learn. And unfortunately, life didn't teach us that. They teach you about your gift, but they don't teach you about the potency of your gift. That's something you learn throughout life. Meaning, oh, Felton can crack a joke and people don't take it serious. But Jay, you crack a joke, people will take it serious. Why? Because that is connected to something else that you still have to be mindful of. And so, yes, when I walk into a room, when I speak, when I'm on this platform, wherever I am, I have to always be aware, because I can't afford to have a quote unquote bad day. I can't afford to just let my hair down, because it literally would cost me my livelihood. And I don't think a lot of people understand that from a professional standpoint, from a day-to-day living standpoint, from a judicial standpoint, but even in religion. You have to be constantly mindful of whatever space you go in, how you present yourself, what you're saying. And if you just are loose with it, it's funny, Jay Donica talked about Matthew, but one of my favorite scriptures, every idle word you'll be judged by. I can't afford to have idle conversation. I can't. And even if I'm having a bad day, somebody can be in earshot of that idol. That's both spiritual and that's both in the physical realm. Somebody can be in earshot of that and take something that I said and run with it. And it could cost me my whole livelihood or somebody that I'm connected to. So yes, I got to be mindful of how I present myself, how I say it, and which I'm doing it every single time, every single day. And
Well,
yes, it's exhausting.
it can be. It can be a heavy burden. I do appreciate you personalizing that, and also very well communicating what's at stake for certain people who may have to walk the tightrope of how they could be perceived in certain settings. And Jay Donica, if you don't get it, this is actually how we go into space. He took that to a place that I wasn't even considering for the moment, but I get why and I get where he was going with it. So I appreciate that, Jay Dwayne. That was a great observation. I was thinking on the terms of my individuality and my tonalness being more centered on my desire to make sure I'm not misunderstood. That is a big pet peeve of mine. Above all else, clarity is to be communicated, and I do not want to be misunderstood. But I totally receive and am conscious, maybe just hadn't thought about it from the way I was communicating the tonal energies question. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There is a requirement, especially in some of the more professional spaces that I've occupied most recently. And of course, Jay Doniker, I've ran for public office now also. There is a requirement that, yeah, Jay Dwayne, you make sure you understand how to not jeopardize something that you're trying to accomplish, participate in, or be a space you're trying to be received in. So yeah, good recalibration of the tonal energies question. I appreciate that, Jay Dwayne. Jay Doniger, what about you? Are you conscious of the tonal energies? Have you had any? You got any examples?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm guilty at times of being very task oriented, and sometimes I get it in my brain. I have to accomplish something, and I tend to be a little bit too short, curt, and concise with people when I shouldn't be. Over the years, I've learned how to become more socially aware of that. But I have to say that because of my stature within Reedsville itself, when I've done that, I always felt that people have given me a pass because they say, oh, that's Jay, he's done this and that. Where I bumped up against it is in my campaigning. I'm now going into areas such as Eden in which people don't know me. And I know that I've said some things that have been taken the wrong way just because in that environment, I am not being given a pass because they don't know me and they really don't know where I'm coming from. And so I can, what Jay Dwayne mentioned, I can identify with that, but probably not on as frequent a basis as he's had to, because more often than not, in our county, when I walk into a room, there are many more people that look like me than look like Jay Dwayne. And so that's one of the reasons why in growing up with parents, we always looked out for other people. And I never could figure out why other people didn't. But it's when you feel anxious, that's when things are taken the wrong way. And it's that level of anxiety, which in my situation is usually a rarity. It's more common now, like I mentioned, when I'm up in areas where many people don't know me. But I would have to say that what Jay Dwayne has said is probably very accurate for the different environments that Jay Dwayne has had to also work. Almost probably have to quote prove that you need to be wherever you are. And that's something I've never had to grow up to truly experience very often, to where I had to prove that I needed to belong in a room. And I recognize that I have a sister who is adopted, who is Chinese, and I know that she's had to at times prove that she deserved to be where she was. And I'm becoming more sympathetic to that as I've grown older.
Well, that's a good thing to hear because, we should stay learning, as I always say. You should never stop learning. So if you're still observing things and making points that, hey, I should accept this as something I can grow into or grow away from, then that's great to hear. Man, I've committed to an idea or that philosophical thing that I like so much that I communicate. It's one of my contributions, and I usually share it with youth, teenagers, especially Black American or other. I've worked with Latinos and whoever else is usually excluded population. But I always say this, and I live it, and not that it's anything that you guys are not conscious of, but it's probably why I didn't. It's probably why Jay Dwayne's recalibration of the tonal energies question is something I hadn't processed. I think I belong anywhere I am. I really do. I walk with that. I live in it, and I accept it as a wherever I am is where I should be. I don't make concessions or give too much thought or energy towards who else is there. If I'm there, then it's all of me, and I'm where I need to be. And I say that to all of the I don't know how many teens I've mentored over the years. You belong. You belong, and that's generally when we're, taking tours of PWIs. I remember taking a group to Georgetown up in Washington D.C. and hell, like, Mr. Felton, we just don't like. It's too old. There's a lot of white people. You belong. You belong anywhere and everywhere. You belong. So I like I said, I lived that. So that may have contributed to not necessarily starting where you did, Jay, but I appreciate it. Bob, what are your thoughts on this part of the conversation?
Gosh, you so often have me come last, and then I've got all these things that other people have said that I've got to think about and talk about and react to and respond to, and I'm like the cleanup guy. The stuff that Jay, I'll call you JD over there, and call you Jay Dwayne over there. Both of y'all made some really terrific comments, and I think it's that I want to reply to, because I see that it seems to me that there are three questions here about this topic. One being Felton's basic question, just about tone of voice and how we are perceived, perhaps interactively, as we engage with people on the streets and as we go about the business of our day. The other, I'll start with Jay Dwayne. White people have a much broader permitted range of tone than Black people do, and Black people have to fit a much narrower range, more narrow range, or white people would just turn them off. White people would just dismiss them. And so, as a practical matter, for a Black person, there's an operational range that's acceptable. And it's cool, Jay Dwayne, what you said about your size, your stature, because I call that presence. A good friend of mine is dean of the divinity school at Wake Forest. And the man, you see him, and he's got to be 6'6". He is not. He's 5'9". And I say that, I think I'm 5'9" and a quarter, and I think he's a little bit shorter than I am. The man's presence is so strong and so powerful, and he's remarkable. But you stand beside him, and it's like, we're the same size. That's cool. But you see him, and you're convinced he's 6'6" because of his presence, and because of his voice, and because of his confidence, and because of his message, and because of his command, and all of that sort of thing. And so I get what you say when you say that. JD, you talk about being task oriented. One of the things that we don't, and I'm going to say we as white people particularly, because we've never had to account for our tone. We've never been restricted by it, except practically. And so task-oriented people, we don't realize how we come across sometimes. And until we discover that, until we are enlightened about that, from our perspective, we're just focused on the task. We don't realize we're coming across as bam, 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 bam driver. And several years ago, I was fortunate to be the head of a company and engage a consultant, organizational development consultant, to do some stuff. And we did these 360-degree assessments, and I had friends, staff, co-workers, others, do this stuff for me. And I was I was flabbergasted with how I was perceived, not negatively. It wasn't a positive negative thing, but I was perceived as being this driver, relentless, focused person. And I'm like, whoa. I'm a collaborator. I'm not that. I'm a collaborator. And so I realized that, gosh, I've got to throttle that back. And the only way I can do that is really to recognize that what they said was what they perceive, and what they perceive is real, not what I think they perceive or want them to perceive. So I got to throttle that back so I can interact with them on the way that I really want to, or that's not going to be happening. It's not going to be happening. The difference in what I say about that and what Jay Dwayne's talking about is I had the power and the position and so forth that I would be accommodated regardless. The decision on my part was a matter of effectiveness. It wasn't a matter of being considered. It wasn't a matter of livelihood. It wasn't a matter of survival. It was a matter of my effectiveness from my point of view that required me to add that intentionality and add that throttling back, if you will. And so I say that to say, JD, I totally identify with what you're talking about. And Jay Dwayne, I totally get what you're talking about. I don't identify with it, but I understand it, because that's a key difference. That's a key difference in race, quite frankly, in this country. We as white people get to make choices about that, or get to ignore that and carry on without implication, without any sense of consequence. Whereas for Black people have to be aware of that, or they undermine everything that they're trying to do. And that's wrong. That's wrong. It should not be that way, but it is that way. And I look forward to the time that it's not.
Yeah, those are wonderful observations, and I instantly comes to mind the old country sounding, wheat straw chewing white person that can go in any space with his boots on and big belt buckle, and it's a cultural norm to allow for that level of diversity of character or personality. But yeah, Jay Dwayne, your obvation stands up that's not allowable for certain
let me interrupt one
Go
more
ahead.
because something you said, Felton.
Hold on 1 second, Bob. I got something, and remember your thought, because I'm coming back to you, so you're not going last. So remember your thought, and then answer this as you finish your complete your thought. How do you know when you've met a fellow contributor? What's the observation that's made? So process that, but I'm coming to you first, since you don't like being the cleanup guy. But finish the thought.
No, that's good. That's good. I want to comment on what you said about you belong here. See, one of the things that we need to understand, you need to figure out, is how you are able to carry that so authentically, because that's something that you've got that needs to be bottled and distributed, because that sense of belonging anywhere is exactly on point. It's exactly right. And it needs to be put in the blood of everybody, because yes, you belong. Everybody belongs. Yes. And the second thing you asked me to think about was what?
So how do you know when you've encountered a fellow contributor?
Authenticity. Back to Jay Dwayne's comment. back to Dwayne's comment. It's authenticity, because I don't mind being wrong. If I'm wrong, I want somebody to tell me and help me understand and help me sort that out. Or if we've got a disagreement, I want to hear the perspective so that we can work that, because I don't mind disagreement. You and I are the same, Felton. We despise being misunderstood. I don't mind if you understand me and you don't like it, I'm good with that. Just don't misunderstand. Don't misinterpret. If you like it or don't like it, cool, as long as it's based upon truth. If you misunderstand and like it, I'm not good with that. I want you to understand before you like it. I want you to understand before you dislike it. I don't care whether you like it or not. I want you to understand. And with understanding and with truth, we can have conversation and we can engage things and we can interact in a way that's authentic and real and constructive. And it doesn't matter what the topic is. If we're genuine, vulnerable, authentic, caring, all those sorts of things, it does not matter. We can sort it out and we can come to terms.
Agreed. I think relational is critical to understanding that you're in that, and not overbearing, that you are encountering a person that, you know, may be of that same sentiment.
And that's where JD and I have to be concerned, because if we can be perceived as overbearing because we're so task focused, and I know Jay, I don't know Jay, but I know him well enough to know he does not want to be perceived that way. And so that's where we have to be concerned, because we don't want to be perceived that way. But our energy and our task focus oftentimes might cause that.
I'm glad you brought that back up, because I was going to actually give a bit of possible, I don't know if it's considered advice at this point, but because you've already made the observation about that. But, you know, one of my favorite people who's no longer with us, Portia, used to call me anal. You're so anal. You know, we planning stuff. I got to have it a certain way. And I don't see it, but she would see it and she would be like, relax, stop it. If I missed the session, I was out for some reason, I'm calling, seeing how everything went. She said, boy, you better just chill. You good. And stop worrying about stuff. So what I was going to say, because during that process, I could also be somewhat of a taskmaster, but I would always announce at those points when I was having to really get something accomplished or focus on as a group project, getting something together that was attached to actually how I wanted the program to be observed from an outsider. I would literally just say to staff and volunteers, excuse me if it doesn't sound like a nicety what I'm about to say, but I'm going to just be rattling off things we need to get accomplished and things we need to focus on for the next couple minutes. It is not personal, please. And I swear that was the best way to have those type of moments. So when you know, and I guess, Jay, you retired now. Bob, I know you are headed in that same direction. You may not need that practice, but when you know that's where we're about to go in this conversation with coworkers or staff or what have you, you can announce it and you can be emphatic that this is so not personal. Please don't misconstrue or assign something to my character, but we've got to be on for a moment. And it's just going to be me saying what needs to take place and let's go. So anyway, I hope that is some type of help. Maybe we can pass it along. Jay Donegan, I'm coming to you. How do you recognize or know a fellow contributor when you see them? And then we'll get on to Jay Dwayne and we'll get ready to wrap this thing up. But what you got, Jay Donegan?
So now I'm the cleanup man.
Yeah. Hey, I was called out, Jay. I was called out. I had to say, let me rearrange the screen. I said, man, you know, Bob didn't put it. He done said everything need to be said. You know, there's a reason, you know. Go ahead, Jay.
No, that's all good. I don't always recognize people right out of the gate as being a contributor, because in my life and my work, I interact with many, many people some of which come across as possibly a contributor. But I do have the ability to remember people for a long time. And if a person appears to be a contributor, then I cross paths with them again and find out what they've been doing or follow up after a conversation. I usually recognize who is a true contributor by how they follow up our conversation, matching their actions with their words. There are a lot of people out there that can blow smoke, but there's, after a while, I just do little things without even thinking about it. For instance, somebody says, "Hey, we need to get together at some time." "Yeah, I'd really like to get together." And what I'll say is, "Here's my card. Give me a call." In other words, I'm not going to chase you. If you're serious that we want to get together, give me a call. And some people will follow up, other people don't. And I don't feel ill of those that don't follow up. It's kind of like just a little hurdle to see if they really do have a skin in the game for what they say they are. I was blessed to have a daughter who is extremely socially aware. And I've actually learned from her in how she works with her team at Facebook, getting things done with everybody being remotely all over North America, but which I've listened in, and she just has a style of recruiting people into tasks without having them participate because she's their manager or anything like that. And that is something I had to take a long time to learn. Initially, work being with my company, allowing me to be a member of Kiwanis, in which you have everybody there as a volunteer trying to get a task completed, but which you just can't say you need to follow what I'm doing because I'm your manager or whatever. You have to learn how to recruit in a very nice, soft way. We're losing that at the moment because we don't have many companies that are willing to afford to allow people to participate, whether it's Lions, Rotary, Kiwanis, anything in which everybody's there for not because they're being paid, but because they're there, their heart's there. Church activities is another way that you can develop the ability to do that. It took me a number of years to be able to do that.
Yeah, I did. I like your observation about consistency. I think that's a trait that I pay attention to also. Being of your word. I'm of the same mindset to a degree, Jay. When I give my card or give my information, I know I would call or I would reach out if it was me who desired to make the interaction grow or go to another level or place. I want the same in return. So I get that consistency, that opportunity, that taking advantage of the exchange or potential interaction. It's observable. I get that. Go ahead, Jay.
I do have one little thing, and it's a nitpicky thing that I discovered, and it's directly about tone. Literally, I discovered that when I was on conference calls, that I could not speak into my phone with the speaker mode. I found that I was raising my voice and not shouting, but pushing harder than if I just put earbuds and then just spoke. I found that it was more conversational. And it took me a while to learn that. And when we started doing Zoom a number of years ago, I discovered myself doing the same way. It's almost like, well, I don't think that microphone's really as sensitive as it is. And I found myself really pushing. And I could tell that some people just were getting lost with my presentation and my tone of my voice than what I was trying to say.
That is a wonderful observation. I've actually just become more accustomed myself as I've done this more and more in cyberspace. And holding a microphone, it's better to say a few words, pleasantries and what have you, so that you can gauge how you're sounding before you just go into your spiel. What was the guy, Howard, somebody, the politician back when I think he was running against Bush, I'm not sure, but he got the hollering in the microphone, and they say that just doomed his campaign. I forget that guy's name, but Dave Chappelle did a funny skit about it. So how about that? Jay Dwayne, take us out of here with your thoughts. How do you know when you've met a fellow contributor?
I do want to clarify, like when we were talking earlier, I'm with you. I share the same sentiment. There's never a space that I don't feel like I belong. I know that I belong, and it sounds arrogant, but it's a privilege for people to be in my presence. But I'm also mindful that some people may not be appreciative of that. And so I'm sensitive to both. And that's what I'm saying. So sometimes when you walk into a room, you know when people don't want you there, even though I have a right to be there and I belong there, and I'm probably more qualified than they are to be there. Because two things I always get: some people always assume that I'm younger than I am. And I'm like, I'm well in my 40s. And then people assume that I'm less educated than I am, and they don't know my professional background at all. They just assume it's all of those things. And so I tend to have to make sure that you understand who you are in the presence of, because I honor myself that much, which goes kind of into what Bob was saying. I don't care if I'm misunderstood. I care more about my words. Meaning, if my words out there are what I said, exactly how I said, I don't care if you understand them or not, because I'm okay with my words being out there, because they will live well after I do. And I'm going to cheat a little bit to answer your question. My background is in behavioral health and higher ed. And I worked so long in healthcare, and I worked so long in student services. And I spent the last 5 years having tough conversations because I dealt with retention. So my job was to anticipate the outcome, but also find the solution at the same time and have those conversations with whoever. And so the cool thing about that, on top of that, my OCD deals with patterns, human patterns and human behaviors. So I typically study human behavior and human patterns to determine if they're truly a contributor. And I'm that one, Jay, that gets on everybody's nerves, where I will come to you and say, you need to be mindful of that person. And usually people are like, no, they're a great person. I'm like, mm-mm. And I have gotten into great arguments with some real good friends because they just thought some people were great, and they really were just horrible people. Like, one thing that happens in the Black community is gatekeepers. White people will love a Black person so much that they will invest all their funds into that one Black person. And even though they respect other great Black people, they'll say, oh, we'll just give you the money, Felton, and you give it to Jay. No, they do that all the time. Like, no, Jay is great. And so I'm the one that says, hey, they put you in a position of a gatekeeper, and they usually don't like it. I'm like, you have no control over it. They have selected you as a gatekeeper. Now, what you do as a gatekeeper determines the legacy of everyone that's connected to you. So I'm that one that will have those conversations and not afraid to do it. And so I'm able to tell by their human behavior, but also truly the energy, the vibes, the spirit, whatever term people want to use. There is something that happens that serves as a confirmation to let you know this is a person I should connect with or disengage. And one of the things that we always teach, if you have to second guess, that's already your warning. If something is telling you like, I don't know what it is, you already got your warning. You don't even have to figure it out. I'm not supposed to do it. Usually when we force ourselves, that's when we come back with the statement, something told me. So I already listened to that something on the front half, so I don't have to listen to it on the back half.
Yeah, red flags are critically important. Being observant can actually, being a person that is observant can actually be mentioned in that contribution to the world. Because if you're an observant person and you're a decent human being, then you share those observations, as Jay is saying, with the people that you care about, or the people that you know may be vulnerable to some shenanigans. So yeah, man, I appreciate that observation also. And no, man, I did not misconstrue or I thought you presented something extra to the table that was worthy of our attention. But I know you belong in any space. I already knew that. That's not it wasn't anything need to be mentioned. So look here, I greatly appreciate having these great minds share this space and share this time with me. Really thanks for showing in and showing up on this occasion, Jay Doniger. Great contributions. Jay Dwayne, as always, appreciate you. Bob, always thanks. Danya, appreciate what you do on the wheels of steel back there, keeping us in the road. And man, this is it. Man, this is better than expected. And Jay Donica, you coming in and livening up the place made a difference this evening. So good luck on your campaign. Jay Dwayne, I'll see you soon enough. I hope. I'm actually headed that way Sunday, I believe. So I might reach out and we'll see if we can connect before the Cowboys play the Eagles. So, Bob,
Go
y'all take it.
Great,
Right.
guys. Good.
Have a wonderful evening. Take care.
Thank you.